So last year, Molly told me, yeah, you know, Cynthia, for next year, what we'd like you to do is to move beyond activity of daily living and do something when you actually step out of the house. So my definition, my quick definition of beyond activity of daily living is when you actually step out of your front door. So we will look today at strategy for transportation, work, life modification, and socializing. And two main issues before we start is that I will present you with different tips and tricks and products, and those products are good, but they're not good for everybody. So before you try any of these, you go to buy one, you go to, you're thinking about it, you should have a good occupational, physical, or, therapist assessment to make sure that this product I'm presenting to you is actually fitting your needs, because some product may even not be very good for you. The other thing is that I'm presenting some product. Obviously, there is a zillion of products similar to what I will present. So I'm not endorsing those products. I don't think they're better than other products that are similar, but it's just I have to give you a picture of some of the product. So just make sure that you discuss with your occupational therapist or physical therapist, depending on the product, and making sure that it fits your needs. And that's my words of caution for that presentation. And now let's start. So before we go on to tricks and tips, I just wanted to briefly comment on how DM1 may affect my life beyond IDL. So going to work, going to socialize with friends at a local coffee, going to do a tourism, things like this. So really, there's many to choose from in myotonic dystrophy. There's not a shortage of potential impairment that can impede your ability to participate in social life. But there's also a lot of solution. So that's the good news there. So you need to come out with your symptoms, with your problems. You need to express them to your healthcare professional, and then they can try to work with you to find a solution. And that's often a difficult part to do when you have myotonic dystrophy, because you adapt slowly to your disease, and you think that that's what it used to be. But you have, as soon as you start looking at, oh, I'm decreasing my walking ability, or I'm decreasing, my strength is decreasing, you need to work on, okay, I need to find solution, and you have to talk to your healthcare professional. And I'm gonna give you just an overview of what we can help you with. So I'm gonna briefly touch upon three things that I think are essential to know about impairment that may happen with you and that may impede your ability in doing social activities and leisure and so on. So obviously the most obvious one is muscular impairment. So you will probably experience gradually a loss of muscle strength. Just to give you an idea, and this is just approximate because it's very different from one person to another, you will start to have distal weakness over 9 years of your diagnosis, maybe earlier, maybe you started to have weakness once you were diagnosed, so it's very different. So that means decreased strength in the hand and in the foot. Proximal weakness will start, so it's really the hips muscle and the shoulder muscle will also progress, but really more slowly and not as severe usually in most patients. But that will also impede your ability to do certain activities in your life, and I will pinpoint those as I go through the presentation. And this decrease in muscle strength will have a lot of consequences. So decreased walking capacity, you will have to use maybe walking aids or wheelchair. And this part of the talk, I will not address this because that was part of my talk last year. And Molly say something different. So I'm doing something different. I'm listening to her. But if you want to have information in the library of the MDF Foundation, you have my presentation of last year. So if I'm not too boring, you can go back to that presentation and you can have more tips on this. There is a lot of tips about walking aids, wheelchair, and prevention of falls. As you're decreasing, you have decreased ability to walk, you are more prone to falls. And falls is not good because you can break your bone. And as your musculature is not as good, your ability to repair and to get better is decreased also. So you don't want to break anything. So you have to prevent fall. And patients often ask me, but how often do I have to fall to consult a physician or an occupational or physiotherapist? More than once a month. It's enough to be considered a frequent fallers. So, and what falls mean? It's mean really being on the floor. But if you trip often, which means you almost fall, you also go to consult. You never too much consult for fall. So just go ahead and tell your doctor. You also experience decreased grip strength, so that will have an impact as well. The other thing I wanted to touch upon is fatigue. Fatigue is very prevalent in myotonic dystrophy, either in the adult phenotype, the late phenotype, in the congenital phenotype, you have fatigue. And what I mean by fatigue, what we mean by that in research is not the usual fatigue that we all experience over the day or sometimes during the weeks or after having physically trained or things like this. It's a level of fatigue that will really impede your ability to pursue your regular activity. So you need to address that with your doctor, and there's a session on the other side of the room with Sarah and Benjamin, and they touch upon great things that you can do to improve your fatigue, and there is solution for that has not been tested in myotonic dystrophy, but that can be tried out as part of your regular healthcare process. There's also energy conservation techniques, and one point I want to really, really emphasize. Fatigue doesn't mean if you're experiencing fatigue every day or every 2 other days, it doesn't mean not to exercise or not to go for a walk or not to go to your regular swimming. Because in other population, and we're starting to show preliminary results as well in myotonic dystrophy, is that exercising up to your ability will decrease your general sense of fatigue. So patients exercise and they feel less fatigue. And they found it very weird because it's not making sense. But it's that central feeling of fatigue that will decrease if you exercise, properly, and that may happen to you. So that's an important issue. There's also apathy. Apathy, hypersomnolence, fatigue, sometimes it means all the same, and it's very difficult for us, at least in research, to really differentiate between apathy, fatigue, and hypersomnolence. But apathy is also really present in myotonic dystrophy, up to 40% on a near soon published paper. But what is apathy is really when you're sitting in your chair during the day and you suddenly decide to go call a friend, or you suddenly decide to do your dishes or to take a walk. This is a goal-directed behavior. This is not something that is asked by your friend or your family or your working partner. So it's something that you initiate by yourself. And with myotonic dystrophy, it may be harder to do that goal-directed behavior. You just don't feel to have the drive. You have difficulty to get going. So you need to work on this, or to make sure that someone's going to call you every week to go for that walk, because you're not going to happen to initiate that by yourself. So you need to work a little bit on that and try to decrease that apathy that is part of the disease. There's also environmental factor that will hinder or help you to be more active in the society. And we did some study, and Kierkegaard in Sweden did also, and we found the same thing. And it's really the importance of support and attitudes from family and friends. So patients who have strong familial or friend support to work, to go to the church, to go shopping, will have more facility, technology like access to different products that I will show you today, and government and public services as well, and I will touch on this this afternoon. And the good news is, as I started just a couple of years ago as an occupational therapist, I won't say how many years, there was not that much adaptation, but then, there was not as much as there is today. And this is very good, and they're getting more and more sophisticated. And one of the reasons, and I found it very interesting, and I just wanted to share it with you, is that it's the Disability Founder Network, and they were saying that people with disability constitute the nation's largest minority group, and the only group any of us can become a member of at any time. And I find it very interesting to think that way. And we see also a big movement through adaptation of the environment, because in Canada at least, the population is aging, and aging brings also different difficulty with, walking or doing certain activity. So people are pushing for more public services to help them maintain their level of activity in the society. So that's a good thing too, because it can also help us. So I did my presentation in like a journey. So we will first address, so if you want to do a social activity like going to a coffee or going to work, you first need to get there. So the first step is getting somewhere. You can either walk, which I'll call community mobility, or drive to that place, or get community transportation. So community walking is really about stepping out of your door and going somewhere. It can be very short, or it can be very long. And as your muscle strengths decrease, you will also feel a decrease in your endurance to walk long distance because your muscles are not as good as they used to. And decreased endurance in other population has been shown that you will less and less go out. You will tend to stay at home more because you've got trouble to walk those long distance. But that's not very good because you need to keep those muscles working. Because if you're sitting in a chair, anybody anywhere, if they sit in a chair for a week, they will lose muscle just because you're not using them. So on top of the disease, if you're not active enough, you will lose a little bit also because you're not using your muscle enough. So you need to keep on doing community walking, longer walk, and shorter walk, but still walking a lot. And you need to be assessed by a physiotherapist because there is potential solution, and I will go to that. The other thing is, in community walking, is how fast should I walk to cross the light safely? Because as you have a decrease in muscle strength, you will not be able to walk as fast. So usually it's 1.14 meters a second to cross a 2-lane road safely. So you need to be assessed on that as well, somewhere along the line by your physiotherapist. And it's a very simple test that we do. We make you walk over 10 meters, and we calculate the time as fast as you can and at your regular speed. And then we give you advice on how safe you are to cross the road. So what should I do if I see that I have trouble now walking into the community? My first message is keep fit as much as possible, as long as you can. Weight reduction is also important because you have to keep an as healthy weight as possible because you're putting extra strain on those muscles that are already weak. So if you lose a little bit of weight, if you have weight problem, that will help your muscle work better and be more effective. Walking aids, wheelchair, and as I said, I won't touch about that. But the other thing that is very interesting is the 4-wheel mobility scooter. There is thousands of products, very different in what they can do, what they cannot do in price. And based on price, I would not be surprised that some can go to the moon, because that's about the price of a fusée, which I have no clue what it is in English, but the thing that goes up. So anyhow, I haven't had enough coffee at lunch, so. Spaceship, that's it, spaceship. So it's a spaceship price, but still. So there is mobility, and what you can do with that, my message is don't wait until you're not able to get out of the house before getting one of these if you can. Because for a lot of things, if you start to not go as much to outside of the house, you'll take the habit of not getting out of the house. And that's the difficult things to go back to. So you don't need to be totally unable to walk outside of your house to get that. And it's great for shopping. It's great also to walking with friends. That seems to not make sense. But oftentimes my patient told me that they give up on walking with their friends because they cannot walk as fast as their friend, so they stop doing it. But now what I see is two people walking on the biking path and a 4-wheel scooter next to them with a person inside and talking. So you do your own walking at your own pace, and you go with friends, and you take your 4-wheel scooter, and you socialize, you go outside, you're having an activity, and that's probably as good as, doing your own walking. And traveling inside large building as well. So if you go to shopping center and you call the guest services, they often have a scooter that you can rent for free to do your shopping inside that large shopping mall. So more and more there is service like this. Now driving and related tasks. So you want to get there again, but you don't want to walk, you want to drive. Driving is not a simple task. You have to get in the car, you have to drive, you have to use the pedals, the driving wheels, and sometimes you have to put the wheelchair of your son or the wheelchair of your loved one in the car trunk, or you have to put your own wheelchair in the car trunk. So all different things. The first thing is getting in the car. And no, driving the car. So 60% are still driving to some point. There's several factors that may impede your ability to drive. Fatigue is one, foot drop, cataract because you're losing sight, hand strength, neck posture. And in our practice, hypersomnolence has not been such a problem. I mean, you may fall asleep this afternoon while I'm talking. This is common in myotonic dystrophy, and I don't mind at all. My husband does also sleep when I'm talking, so it's okay. Or he's actually yawning, you know, he's like, okay, oh yes, it's interesting. So it's common, but hypersomnolence while driving is not something we've seen that much in patients with myotonic dystrophy. So it may happen. If it does happen, you have to call your doctor and have a good assessment because it's obviously not a good place to sleep. But just make sure, but it's usually not that main problem. One of the problems we've seen a lot is getting in the car. And my patients say, but I don't understand. I'm walking fine, not so bad, but when I get in and out of the car, it's so hard. And why? Is that because you're probably starting to have some weakness that you don't really realize. Even your doctor, if he's asking to resist your leg, won't see it, but it's what we call subclinical. But when you get in and out of the car, what do you do when you get into your pickup or your van is you do something like that, and that's an hip motion. So that's probably why you have trouble getting, and when you're going up, it's the same thing. You need strong hip. So that's maybe part of the trouble, and I'm just gonna, and this is, sorry, I should have shown that. So the solution here that we have, and we proposed it to a couple of patients and they liked it. It's a seat. So you take out the seat of your car and you put that seat and it just go down and then it turns like this and you go in the car, all automated. And again, it's very varied in product and in price. You can have even heated seats. So in the winter when it's, cold, you can just, be warm and nice. But it's efficient, it's not that expensive, it works very well. And I've just put the reference and the little YouTube video. So again, there's thousands of products like this. This is one we use, but there's many other good ones. Using the pedals and driving wheel, usually in our experience, is not a big issue. But if you do have trouble turning the wheel, and maneuvering your car, there is a potential adaptation to decrease the demands on your muscle of the hand to turn the driving wheel. So they do something, and I'm not good in cars, so they do something inside the hoods of the car. They do something, and it's easier to drive. So that's how far I go. But they do something, it works well. So it decreases demand on muscle strength. That's all I understand. So now, transporting your manual wheelchair or putting your manual wheelchair in the car is often an issue if you're alone because of degree strength and balance is uncertain. But also, if you have to do that all day and your loved one or your carer or your girlfriend or boyfriend is having also health issue, maybe it's also difficult for him or her to put your wheelchair in the trunk. So what we've been using for a couple of years now, and it's very nice. I apologize for the poor quality, couldn't find anything better. So it's an all-automated wheelchair that put it on top of the car, and your wheelchair doesn't get wet or doesn't get dirty, and you just need to do it. So there's a couple of patients who were alone and were not able anymore to put their wheelchair in the trunk of their car, and that just worked beautifully for them. So it's something we use. Now, for my Texas friend, because I have Texas friend here, and I'm coming from a place where we also we love trucks. So, given that Texas, according to Business Review 2013, are the biggest buyer of pickup trucks, I said I need to find a solution for them. And there is the access atop. So you can have your power wheelchair or your manual wheelchair that will be taking automatically into your truck, and there's a top on, there's like a flipping top so that it's preventing from rain or from snow or from whatever. So this is the ultimate thing. We haven't tried it yet, though, but it's, it's a potential possibility. And you will see different things today, but what I want you to keep as a message, some are very funny, some are very expensive, some are very simple. The only thing you have to keep in mind is When you start thinking that you're losing ability to do something you like, you should consult, because there's thousands of product and solution, and sometimes you think, oh no, there's nothing I can do. It's usually wrong. So please, and I'm showing all sorts of things just to open your mind to all possibilities. Now, transporting your wheelchair is also your electrical wheelchair or your scooter. And what we do is a chariot. So it goes to middle-sized cars, so it's nice. You don't have to buy a minivan. And what it does, so you can put your scooter on top of it and just drive. It's good for summer season or where there's no snow, so we don't use it as much, but they tend to use it in other part of the country where there's not as much snow as where I live. And it's working beautifully. It's really convenient and simple, so you can bring your scooter to all different places, and especially people who like to do tourism. So when they go to a tourist attraction, that's wonderful to do that. And the four-wheel scooter also, a lot of places will rent it. So if you don't want to have it all the time, but you just want it when you go outing in the summer or things like this, you can rent it as well. So that's another option. Accessible transportation, often present in your community, but I'm telling you, they have excellent services, but they're making every possible effort so that you never find them. I have tried to find, and the best way is that you just call. So you're planning a train trip or an airplane trip, don't try the website. I did. I'm very good with website. I mean, it's an undercover web. They make sure they don't know. So you call, you say the 6, the 8, the weight, and finally you talk to someone. And you say, I'm planning a trip, and I have someone with a wheelchair, or I have, mobility issue. What can you offer me? And I'll tell you about a program. It's actually amazing, and I'm sure nobody knows, but I'll tell you in a moment. But they make sure you don't want to know. So that's the only thing. But once you know, they're excellent. So finally, you got there with all your adaptation and services, but you're not in yet. You're not sure where you're going is accessible. A wonderful thing now, Able Road. It's new services. It's been around a couple of years. It's a website. The website is at the end of my presentation, so I've got the website address. Able Road is like, do you know TripAdvisor? Okay, so if you want to know if an hotel is good, you just read the review. Able Road is about accessible is an hotel, a restaurant, a tourist attraction. It's for USA. There's also one in Canada. I give the address. And what it does, it rates every places according to either physical disability, hearing disability, visual, and even cognitive disability, which means that if you have a kid with autism, you have a kid with learning difficulty that needs to be repeated a couple of times, you have actually rating for that in certain places. So each person can go and make a review as a user of that place. And as TripAdvisor, sometimes there is good reviews, sometimes there's not such good review. You have to use your judgment. But even if you want to make your review of this hotel, well, it's actually on Able Road. And there's a rating. You can see if you agree or not after visiting this place, and you can make the review. So that's good too. I found it very interesting to know that. Obviously, in each hotel on the website, you also find, information about how they are accessible, but sometimes they say bathroom is accessible, but in reality, it is if you're a kid with a wheelchair, but if you're an adult with a wheelchair, to have tried some of the supposedly, adapted washroom, it doesn't work, So it's good to have the review of people who actually use it. Now, let's do something. So we're there, we're in, and I'm a girl, so we'll start talking about shopping. That's the major thing you like, So how do you do your shopping when it's, you're having a little bit more trouble going around? A lot of things, actually. So first, I love home delivery. I'm using it myself. So you shop on the internet, they deliver the clothing or the product to your house, and if you don't like it, a lot of sites you can send it back for free. So they give you a return bag, you put what you don't like in the bag, you zip it, and you put it back in the mail, and that's it. So that's one thing that you can do. There's also medication delivery. So a lot of pharmacy will offer free medication delivery. And what I always tell my patient is that now pharmacy look like more supermarket. So you can also bring some milk and some pasta and a pair of shoes for your younger one, and they can put that all in the box and bring it to your house. Shopping cart like this is nice, what you can see, so that it's got wheels under the shopping cart. And a lot of stores now have scooters as well, so you can ask and have access to a scooter to do your shopping. Now, you also have to remember what you need for, as shopping lists. And what I found very nice, and again, I'm a Mac person, I'm not advertising for Mac either or any apps, it's just apps that I'm actually using, and I found a couple of other ones. So there's tons of apps that can help you to remember lists, to make sure you don't forget anything. And sometimes with myotonic dystrophy, you tend to be more forgetful. So that's a good thing, but I use lists all the time. So remember the milk actually saved my marriage, because I was always not remembering the milk. And then the kids and my husband was like, you forgot the milk. I said, oh, no, not again. Cynthia, make a list. So I'm using Remember the Milk now, and I love the name because that's what I usually tend to forget to buy. So help you remember your shopping list. It's really easy to use, and what I love is that they got a new function, and you can pinpoint your favorite place. So let's say if I'm near the drugstores, well, there will be an alert that I have something to buy at the drugstore. And so it's a ping, and then I say, oh yes, that's true, I had to buy, I don't know, aspirin or toothpaste or things like this. So it's very wonderful. Now, the other thing that maybe when you're not as able to go shopping as you used to is when you're buying a big piece of equipment and you want to compare prices, usually you go to one shopping places and then you go to the other and to the other. So there's an app that's called Red Laser. It's not only, you can only use it in the States, it's not working in Canada. So that if you target a product, it will give you the price in your area of like 7 different stores. So you can compare the prices in the comfort of your house. And it's really quick. It's quicker to go than to go to all the website and try to find the product. So it's good. The other thing to take notes is Evernote. So it's a really cool app to get notes, store a picture, and make sure you don't forget. So this is different apps, and there's a lot of apps out there very nice that can help you with that. So this is for apps. Leisure now. There's a lot of factors affecting leisure. So we talk about lower extremity strength, and we talk about strength training. Last year, there was a session by Sri Pandya, which is a physiotherapist, on strength training recommendation. So you can go back to the MDF library to watch that to have good advice. Fatigue, we have energy conservation techniques. There's, again, support, government services, education, and probably apathy will also affect your leisure. So having a couple of obligations is also good because it doesn't just rely on you, but if you are taking courses, you are in a gym class, you get a buddy to go with you, it's all good trick to go over apathy, because if your friend is calling, it's like any of us. When we get to training, we train a little and we're all motivated, but then we're like, oh, well, I have to do this and this and this. But when you go with your friends, sometimes it's you to call your friend and motivates you. Sometimes it's the other way around. So that's a good trick. So I had millions of examples. I'm just giving you the most popular in where I live. So bowling is a big thing in Saguenay, We have a long winter, so we have to do something. So bowling is great. So there's all sorts of adapted things that you can use to play bowling, and there's adapted league for kids, for adults. And one cool thing that I found was that you can have an handle on your ball, and when you throw the ball, the handle slip inside, so the ball is like, real nice, so the handle doesn't come in the way, but you can handle the ball, it's easier. So, coming from a cold country, we love spa. So there is even chair that you can get in the spa, and it's a lift, so it's easy to use, and you can get in and out of the spa very easily, so that's another thing. My favorite now is, because I'm doing skiing, is adaptive skiing. So we do that, we have that in our ski center, and it's really cool. You can do it as an adult, and you can do it as a kid. And it's a wonderful thing to do. It's fun, and you can even learn as a parent to do it, or a sister, a brother, whatever, when they're getting older, can also do adaptive skiing, so it's very nice. There's other idea, swimming, there's a lot of adapted pool and services, horseback riding, fishing, tandem cycling, where it's a bicycle that has 2 seats, and then one person can, do less than the other one. Museum have a lot of good things and adapted services as well. Now, for parents only, the best trick I have. Oh, yes, sorry. That eye. Okay, so the question, because we're videotaped, so she said that she liked to sunbathe, that's the sun, and the chair are too low, so it's difficult to rise. And I don't have a product in mind, but grab me just after the presentation, write me your email, and it will be my pleasure to send you some, tricks. I'll find something. I'm sure there is something. And then I'll put it back in my presentation for next year. So that's good, because I love sunbathing too. I didn't thought about that one. That's a good leisure too. So I'll do that. So for parents only now, a babysitter. You need one in your life. And believe it or not, kids will survive without you. They will, and they actually enjoyed it. Now, the main question my parents told me is that, yeah, fine, you tell me a babysitter, but my kid's at congenital or infantile myotonic dystrophy, and it's not that easy to take care of them. So I cannot just take the girl next door, So what I give them for trick, there is agency, that's one thing, but sometimes they're not available in your community, or it doesn't fit, or you don't like the girl that is presented to you. The other thing is you look at university or college program where people tend to have a good training. So what I do, I said, go to university program for teachers or for daycare specialists, and then put an ad. I'm a mom, and I'm looking for a babysitter with kids with special needs. And what is good about that is that they're usually trained. They have their RCP and health, issue workout, so they're great. And they're actually people who are, already have a fiber for that, I would say. So they're always good resources. Yes? Oh, physical therapy. So just for the webcast, you told me about that. So about that, Jacinta is saying also the physical therapy program is a good place to get a good babysitter. And okay, so the other thing was care.com, where there's caregiver and babysitter, and also maybe lifeguards. So there is a way around to find a good babysitter, and it's, it will make unbelievable good to your health, and your kids will survive. So the other thing I wanted just to show, because it's so inspiring, I just found that out when I was looking at ideas. So it's the America's Freedom Sailor. It's about that has been completely designed to be what they call universal design. So that will fit anybody, any size, any shape, any disability. So hearing disability, sight disability, physical disability, and everybody can actually maneuver some part of the boat and be on the boat and experience it. And I've put the website on, and they offer, and it's a beautiful, beautiful ship. So I thought it was just an inspiring idea for universal design. Now, traveling means also going to the bathroom. So, and you want to make sure the bathroom is accessible. You go to Able Road, that's one thing, or you call the hotel. But there's also time, because you've got GI tract problem is a problem in myotonic dystrophy for some people. Urinary emergency is also a problem. It's not specific to myotonic dystrophy, but talk to any women who had a couple of kids, and they probably would say that sometimes the road to the bathroom is very long and very challenging, And I had a couple of kids, so I can tell you sometimes it's like, oh my God, I won't make it. So, and a lot of my patients told me that they prevent themselves on certain days to go out because of that. Their GI tract is not functioning properly, and they're afraid they're not going to make it to the bathroom. And as you got a problem walking, you don't walk as fast, well, then the road is even longer to go to that bathroom, so it's even worse. And so we all have in mind those bizarre products for incontinence, and they're not very fun or sexy or whatever, but I found the product. So it's called Be Confident. It's absolutely beautiful. I want some of them. Well, I actually want also the rest of it, but so this is a urinary incontinence product that is as good as anything on the market and even better. It's a new product. It has been designed by fashion mode designer that was interested in this, and they're available on the web. So I think it's great, and that prevents, at least as women, we like to look nice, So you have product that you can use and that make it maybe easier on certain day. Now, traveling and tourism. It's often an issue as your muscle strength decrease walking ability, and wheelchair accessibility. And there's now a lot of resources to plan your trip, help you plan your trip with your loved one, with your children. So in Quebec, if you want to visit Quebec or Canada, or even Saguenay, you got Kéroul. Kéroul is very nice because it's rate all the tourist attraction according to different, factors. And there's also specialized agency. I give you two of them because I found them. They're in the US. I don't know if they're any good. I'm just giving you ideas. But what they do is that their specialty is to design travel for people with different impairment. And they have been there, like the two I've given to you, I think they've been there for 15 or 20 years. So they have experience. And I like the idea of, the picture is not that big, but it's a man that was telling his experience of going on the Machu Picchu and is in a wheelchair. And I never thought that Machu Picchu would be, accessible for wheelchair. So again, and this is my scoop. So did you know, I didn't, that Air Canada, and probably in the States as well, but it was so hard to find the information that I only find it for Canada, is that if you want to plan a travel and you're not able by yourself to do that travel, they will offer a free place in the plane to the person that is helping you. So, and that runs for so many services. And I told you, great services, but they make sure you never know because you're going to use them and it's going to cost them something, I don't know if it's that, but anyhow. So there is a lot of museum of tourist attraction that will offer those promotion if you ask. So you have to Google it, you have to try it out, you have to call, but there is program where when you're not able to attend by yourself, the ticket for your helper will be free. So that is, I think, a very good thing. And a lot of services is offering them. Now, once you enter the building, you need to socialize. And you'll see why I'm talking about this. So social isolation has now been identified as a health risk, as smoking, obesity, or sedentarity social isolation is a risk factor. So if you don't socialize enough, it's good, this weekend is perfect, you're doing it great. But there's a lot of people who are not doing it as they should. You need to get together with people. And with the adult onset phenotype, sometimes, not all people, will tend to develop a more avoidant personality where they tend to avoid social interaction and prefer solitude to company. But that's not good for your health. So you should promote it that you socialize more. And we discuss with my colleagues on how we can stay connected because there's no evidence of the best way to socialize. So here are some thoughts that may or may not fit you. So the first one is community center. There's a lot of good community centers that offer services. Sometimes they will refuse you based on age. We train all our occupational therapists to advocate that it's not about age, it's about profile. And if your profile fits the community center, then you should be allowed to get in. And usually with a bit of pushing, we can get people in, and they're actually very happy, and they are making friendship, and they are doing a little bit of physiotherapy, a little bit of this, they're going outing, it's amazing. So you got community center. You got also daily call. If you're living alone, there is service called daily call. So it's someone who's called you in the morning, 10, 15 minutes chat, making sure everything is okay. And that's a service that is often available. Yeah, I'll be on time. So daily call. Take a short course. Have you ever wanted to do painting, photos, whatever? There's millions of courses out there. Get into one. That will make you go outside. That will give you pleasure doing something nice, and that will help also to socialize with new people. Internet. Okay, I'm in the middle of saying if it's good or it's bad. I must say I have no Facebook account or no Twitter account. So, but I had some patients that are using it very nicely to keep in contact with their family. They have problem with their speech, so it's harder, so they can give news over the internet. They can put picture, they can discuss. In some of the kids, I found also that it may be helpful, but you have to use your judgment. It doesn't replace real relationship. A Facebook friend is not a friend, you know, and you have to make, no, but it's, you know, you need to say it. So for some people, having 40,000 friends is actually a real asset, but I'm not sure, you know, they will help you on, if you have big trouble, you know. So Facebook, Twitter may be good, but it has to be either if it's your kids under parental supervision or even if you're an adult, it doesn't replace real relationship. What I found nice also is playing online game. Like if you like to play Scrabble, you can play online. Again, it doesn't replace going to your community center to play or going to a friend, but sometimes it may be helpful also to have some online games so you can chat. But again, you have to be cautious about chatting and, you know, security issue. But still, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna say, but that's happening anyhow. Get involved in your community. This is what I found sad oftentimes, is when you're working and you do some volunteer work, you feel so good about yourself, you're so proud. And you're thinking about your retirement and you're saying, oh yes, I'm gonna volunteer in this and this and this, and you know, it's all positive. I often found that with the people I work with is that when they lose their job because of their physical disability, they don't see volunteer work as good as this. It's like a second thing, and it's not. Volunteer work is as significant as paid work. It's just a different way of thinking of it. And it will bring you so much in your life. I've got a lot of patients involved in community work and volunteer work. And I mean, they're having a good time, they're involved, they, you know, and it's through their interest, their capacity. And sometimes it's just a couple of hours a week, but that's enough to keep them active and engaged in the community. And there's a lot of umbrella organization for volunteer work. So you call there and they'll let you know if you volunteer in school or in community services or whatever. There's millions of ways you can volunteer. Go take a walk. Travel tour, also a good way to stay connected. So, you know, there's organized travel that you can go in. That may be another solution to get to know new people. Now, for your kids, so you've got the babysitter and you got summer camps. I've been personally a camp counselor for people with disability for years, and the kids had a total good time. You cannot imagine things they won't tell you, but they have so much fun doing with us. So it's a good experience. You have to make sure that those camps are certified to receive your children if they have disability, but it's a very, very good experience. And things that is less known, there is also summer camp for adults with physical disability. I've been working in one too, and it was actually very, the adults really appreciated going camping, going canoeing, doing all sorts of things, because those camps are equipped to go canoeing with a motor, with a wheelchair, you know, so there are all sorts of adaptation again. So that's another thing that you can plan. For kids also, a new thing that is coming out, it's called social skill training. It's mostly been designed for attention deficit kids or learning disability, but it may be worth trying with kids with either mostly infantile phenotype to help them get more social skill. And the program are very nice, they're very well designed, so that may worth it, but it's not, it hasn't been shown in myotonic dystrophy though. And there's also excellent book with practical tips to improve social interaction, although again, we haven't tried it in myotonic dystrophy. Working, the last thing. And sadly, not much to say. We haven't worked a lot in research about helping people with myotonic dystrophy to pursue work longer. The only thing we could find briefly is that we can adapt the schedule. There's some task modification. We promote a lot of voluntary work. There is some access to sheltered workshop, but not as much as we would like to. Vocational service tend to not know myotonic dystrophy, so you have to educate them before they can help you. So that's a main problem. And the other thing is that for work, you need to, what we do is usually we offer support for daily living activities so that people are able to go to work without being too fatigued. You know, so they will help with the kitchen, with the dishes, with making meals, so that when you come home, you don't have to do this on top of working. So that has helped as well. So I would like to thank you and to thank all my colleagues for their precious help in giving me idea and tricks. And you have the product website and the accessibility website.